Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I have to say I love the gender balance on this panel. So huge round of applause for that. And well, we are here to talk about the EB5 investor visa program, all that it has to offer. A lot of people in India today have the American dream. This is a unique pathway to fulfill that dream. It allows foreign investors and their families to gain US residency by investing in American businesses that create jobs. You've heard a little bit from various regional centers. We are here with all of them in a comprehensive discussion now. So just to give you the headlines once again as far as the investor program is concerned, by putting in a minimum of $800,000 into a designated high unemployment area or a little over $1 million into other areas, investors can secure a green card for themselves, the spouse, and children under the age of 21 years. So the goal of the program is, of course, to boost the US economy, but also to offer investors who have the American dream a chance to build a life in the United States of America. So let's explore what this opportunity has to offer, what are the checks and balances investors should be putting into place. And if I can start with you, Girish, firstly, why should an Indian opt for this pathway, the EB5 visa program, over other US immigration programs to really gain permanent residency in the US?
Thank you, Mridu. And I think this is very important question. It's relevant as well. The reason why this question is really relevant is to first understand what the goal of a particular individual or the family is when they are trying to look for US as an option. So EB5 visa allows the investor, along with their family, if they have clean source of funds of $800,000 US, to secure permanent residency in the US. It is one of the fastest routes to be in the US. So first, you need to analyze yourself as to EB5 is something which you want to opt for, whether permanent residency is something which you want to opt for, because there are various visa categories which serve various purposes. So for example, if you just want to visit the US, then B1, B2 is a great option. If you want to start your own business but doesn't necessarily want to settle in the US, then L1 is a great option. So similar to that, EB5 visa gives you an opportunity to have permanent residency in the US with a fast option to be there permanently. Now, when I say fast, it doesn't mean it's quickly, within 2 to 3 months, you are going to be in the US. It's a step-by-step process. You have to complete each of those processes to procure your green card. But when you look at other visa categories such as EB2 or EB3, there are decades of wait line or wait time. You are essentially stuck in a queue. There are people who have invested and who have applied for EB2 visa 10, 15 years back. They still are yet to receive their green card in the US. So when you compare that, EB5 visa gives you that quick option to have permanent residency in the US.
Right. And in your experience, what's been the fastest approval of an EB5 visa?
Right, so it varies. It varies as to where the person is. So for example, and we are going to discuss that in detail as well, that if someone is already in the US, then the timeline for your approval is going to differ as compared to someone who is in India. The only difference in these two scenarios is you apply for something called as adjustment of status, which essentially allows you to change your status from non-immigrant to immigrant visa holder if you're already in the US on some non-immigrant visa category. If you're in India, then you have to go through the consular processing. So that's the additional timeline. However, we are seeing approvals, the initial approvals are 5 to 6 e-petitions in as low as 3 months, as high as 12 months or 18 months. It depends on each project and the investment strategies which they have utilized.
All right, fair enough. Rhea, coming to you. Now, what is the role that a regional center plays in an investor's EB5 journey, and how does one identify a good regional center?
Okay. So I'll start with telling you what a regional center is. It is essentially a license that companies like ourselves hold. And what it allows for us to do is to get investment opportunities and options available for EB5 investors like yourselves. So it's essentially a license that helps us issue these projects for the investors. So that's what a regional center is. Coming to how do we identify the right regional center or the right company that has different project options available. So first and foremost, there are multiple regional centers that are available in the industry for you to look at, multiple projects available. What you essentially need to see as an investor is look at the track record of the company. See how long the company is been operating, what kind of projects they have. Do you understand the asset type that they have as for their offerings? Then you look at how much money have they raised versus how much money have they been able to repay back to investors. Because as much as your green card is important, what's also important for most or almost all investors is to receive your money back in full. The $800,000 that you are investing in, you must see that a regional center has a good track record in returning those funds back to the investors on time. So these are a few things to look at when you're doing your due diligence to when you're looking at different projects by different companies.
Thank you, Rhea. Abhishek, how important is it to choose the right project? And what should investors look for while choosing these projects?
Very good question. So there are two aspects of your entire petition which is going to decide the entire course of journey for you. Number one is going to be the source of funds. Number two is the project that you're investing in. Now, thumb rule of choosing a project is, I'll talk about developers and developer security over here because majority of the projects that you will find in EB5 world are related to real estate. So capital stack, the project should have a good capital stack. Some rule of choosing a project is how much money is coming from the developer's own pocket. That means what is the developer security? In what form the money is being given to that particular developer or is coming to that particular project? How is the structuring done? What is the track record of the developer? How many projects the developer has done in the past? How many projects were successful? How many EB5 investors have got the money from that particular developer? That means you need to be with an experienced developer, not only in the field of real estate, but also in EB5 world. Plus, the most important thing nowadays is go with a project which has an I-956F approval. Now, that is something which is important because that really decides the timeline in which you're going to get approved. Plus, it's also like there are only two ways you can get denied. Either there's a problem with your source of funds or the project did not get approved. So if you're already investing in an approved project, that means you're checking one box. You cannot get denied through that. Other most important thing is that when you're looking at the capital stack, look at the LTC and LTV. What are that? Loan to cost, loan to value. If you're investing in a project, it has a good loan to cost, good loan to value numbers, go ahead with that.
All right. Good. That was a comprehensive view of, projects and things people should look at while investing in projects. Akshat, if I can come to you next, what are the minimum investment requirements? How do they vary between targeted employment areas and non-targeted employment areas? And, how do investors then assess where to put the money?
Sure. So essentially there are two categories. One is the targeted employment area category. The other is the non-TEAs or the non-targeted employment area categories. The investment in a targeted employment area category project is $800,000 versus the investment in a non-TEA project, which is 1.05 million. Now, as industry folks, what we have seen is most investors in today's times look for a targeted employment area project because it has a further classification of a rural, a high in employment area, and an infrastructure project. So the USCIS has given an allocation or a visa availability of 32% from the total visas that are issued to all EB5 investors globally, specifically set aside for this category. As an EB5 investor, if you apply or invest in a TEA project, you're basically standing in a separate queue as compared to all other EB5 investors who are applying from across the globe. In terms of what is the minimum investment tenure, the USCIS recently, in terms of their guidelines, said that they defined a sustainment period to be as a minimum investment of 2 years where your entire $800,000 has been disbursed or lent to the JCE. So the government says as long as your entire $800,000 has been invested in the project for a minimum period of 2 years, and has created the minimum number of 10 jobs per investor application, you're eligible to seek a refund. Having said that, the actual maturity of the project completely depends on the project that you're investing in. So all of us would have different investment tenures. What we are generally seeing, especially after that judgment, is that most EB5 projects have a tenure of 3 to 5 years.
Right. Rhea, you want to add to that, especially examples in terms of, investors who have put in the money in targeted employment areas, any success stories that you want to share?
See, with EB5 Capital, we've almost always had projects in the targeted employment area with an $800,000 investment. Post the RIA, we've introduced projects, again what Akshat said, of project terms of about 3 to 5 years. And that's the project term that we're having for most of our projects now. And so post the RIA, we have investors come in. It's still under, the process of construction, stabilizing, and eventually investors will receive their money back.
Right. Girish, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so as Akshat and Rhea mentioned, that there are different timelines when it comes to project. However, it is very important to understand that it's not the timeline or how fast or slow you are reaching the US. It's very important to understand that you are looking to permanently reside in the US. So it's a long-term goal. You essentially want to spend your lifetime in the US with your family. So coming back to the basics, the important thing is to understand the integrity of the regional center, the developer, and the project. Timelines may vary, loan tenures may vary, construction timelines may vary as well. As far as you're confident in the track record of the regional center after you ask relevant questions, you should be good to go. Not just based on the timelines as to how fast or slow I will reach US, but whether I will be able to reside there permanently, not just at the initial conditional residency stage, but also at the permanent green card stage.
Right.
I have something. Hello?
Yeah.
I have something to add here. Post the RIA, there have been a lot of Indian investors that have required, rural projects. We've introduced rural projects in the market. Now, EB5 Capital, the company that I represent, we are a very conservative group of regional center. So it's taken us much longer than all the other companies in the market to bring in the right project, in a rural area, because we understand the risks that also come with a rural project. And because we're a conservative group, we've sort of found the right kind of projects, understand the requirement of that area. If there is a requirement, let's say it's a ski town and people require to have a hotel there, or it's a town with a lot of people coming in for work from home post the COVID, and there is housing crisis there. So we like to do projects where we know that, let's say there's dearth of a particular kind of asset type in that area. So most regional centers, post the RIA have rural projects where we allow Indian investors to come in and invest and get a faster processing time with to get their green card eventually.
Right.
Mridu, if I may, I just wanted to, for the interest of the audience, a rural project is a project which is located in an area where there are less than 20,000 inhabitants. A high employment area project is a project which is located in an area where the unemployment rate in that area, as well as the nearby census tracts, is greater than 150% of the national unemployment rate. So while we are talking about rural projects and high employment area projects and infrastructure projects, I think it was best to also educate our investors as to how are they defined and how are they placed in terms of geographical areas in the US as well.
Absolutely. So thank you for that input and insight. Now, Aarushi, you are the lawyer on the panel. So how complex is the legal process for an investor who wishes to invest in this program? What are the laws that they need to know? And, how do you help investors make their way to the US?
Sure. So thanks so much for the question, Mridu. First of all, I'd like to begin by saying it's not a complex process. And as stakeholders, as experts here, we are with you to make this process seamless. Now, how do we do that? We have to be cognizant of certain laws, both in the country of origin, which is, let's say we are sitting in India and chatting about this. So you have to be cognizant of the laws in India, as well as you have to be cognizant of the laws in United States. And this is why I'm very proud to represent a law firm that has a footprint across the globe. So at Donoso and Partners, we are based out of Maryland. We are a team of US expert lawyers. We also have Indian lawyers on the panel. And together, the entire team ensures that you meet all the compliance. So just to take an example of what are the laws that you need to navigate through. When you are remitting funds from India, understand that this is an investment-led migration program. So you're investing $800,000. You need to find out what are the Reserve Bank of India rules, how much money can you remit in a financial year, how much money is allowed to be gifted to an individual, can I source the entire capital from my business, or do I need to navigate certain tax laws? So this is where our firm of experts comes to your rescue. In the first 1 to 2 months, when you start talking about the program with us, all we do is educate you about it. In fact, we have a strict due diligence process, not before we are fully satisfied that you meet all the evidentiary criterions, that your source of funds are in place, will we ask you to make any investment in any project. So yes, in terms of the Indian laws, you're looking at RBI, you're looking at FEMA laws, you're looking at Income Tax Act and the laws governing the transactions. When it comes to United States, again, the apex body overlooking the program is United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. So the USCIS wants to look at 2 important factors. Are your source of funds lawfully earned? Are they legally traceable? And this is where what we do is that we map the entire trajectory of funds. We'll ask you for bank statements, corroborative evidence, and ensure that you are in fully compliance of the laws applicable.
Right. Okay. So we have a bit of the legal perspective. I want to also deep dive a little more into the due diligence. And Girish, what sort of due diligence should investors be looking at before committing to a project in the EB5 investor visa program?
There are few frequently asked questions which are very important, which should be asked to any regional center or any third party when they are advising you that you should be going with this particular project. Firstly, what is the track record of that particular regional center? How many projects have they dealt with in the past? How many times has it happened that there has been issues with those projects? And what were the steps which they had undertaken to resolve those particular issues? Now, any experienced regional center, maybe there have been a couple of instances where something was a hindrance in the completion of that particular project. So it is very important to analyze and understand what were the steps taken for them to essentially navigate through those issues to ensure that the investors were not just able to get the green card, but also to be able to get the return of their initial investment, the return of capital. The second point is the developer, because the regional center might be experienced in that area, but what is the developer doing? Have they worked with this particular regional center or the other way around in the past? If yes, then what was the track record between that regional center and that developer? And lastly, the project, because you are investing, any investor is going into that project. So any amount of promises, any amount of track record, any amount of documentation which has happened in the past has happened in the past. Your money is going into the current project. So it is very important to get all the information related to that project. So usually all the regional centers are going to have something called as a PPM, Private Placement Memorandum. Each investor needs to go and analyze those on their own. They will get to know all the risks and disclosures along with the business plan. So you get to know what the project is all about, you get to know what the risks are, and you also get to know what the disclosures pertaining to that project are. That is when you are fully equipped to take the next step of actually going ahead and investing.
And I just want to add to what Girish said, very valid point. Look at the private placement memorandum. A good regional center would disclose the economic report, the job creation study, the business plan. As Abhishek mentioned, if the 956F or the business plan is already approved, then definitely that's a big tick for you to invest on a project. But do your independent due diligence. Also remember, this is an advice that I give all my clients. Don't fall for promises where they say money is guaranteed or insured. This is an investment at risk. And definitely you can mitigate these risks by selecting the right regional center, by selecting the right project.
I'm sorry, just wanted to add one point. Well said, Aarushi. The most important thing when you choose a regional center, you should always look at how transparency and communication is the most important feature that you should look at whenever you are looking at a regional center. They should share all the details of the project with you. They should always be with you in the entire process, from risk to finances to track record of job creation plus the forecast of job creation. Do an extreme due diligence on the forecast of job creation. And plus, they should have an experienced team which can, who can navigate through complexities, should know the entire EB5 landscape, and can be there with you throughout the entire process, giving you knowledge and information about any changes happening or whatever is going to happen in future.
I'd just like to add one point
Sure.
here. As Abhishek rightly said, that it's important for investors to understand that some investors could take 2 months, some people take 6 months. We've also spoken with investors who've taken a year and then made the investment, right? So as an investor, you should only invest in a particular EB5 project when you are 100% sure. Furthermore, every good regional center representative would encourage you to physically go and see the project yourself. For those investors that are based in the US, I think it's a no-brainer. For those who are in India, we always encourage people to either ask their friends, their families, their relatives. A good regional center will schedule a one-on-one site visit along with the regional center representatives, along with the developer, because there's one thing to know about something, read about it, but when you go physically see what the area is, how the asset class is, it just gives you a completely different picture altogether.
Right. Aarushi, as a law partner on these EB5 journeys, have there been times where you've told clients that I don't think this is a safe project and I don't think you should invest in this?
So that's a very good question. See, in terms of safety and financial viability, as an immigration law firm, we steer away from making that decision, because at the end of the day, we are retained by the client to assess the project from an immigration standpoint. Many of our clients have retained services of a registered broker-dealer or a securities lawyer, and their role is exclusively to assess the financial risk on the project. Now, apart from that, what is my role as a law firm? I'm just not reviewing your immigration side. I'm just not reviewing your source of funds. I also have to make sure that from a project standpoint, your investment is okay. So we'll be looking at the documentation, we'll be studying the business plan with you, and we will be doing an immigration check on whichever project or regional center you select. For that matter, many a times if we have to ask for certain additional licenses or disclosures from the regional center, we encourage that. Many regional centers today on the panel, they also encourage clients to ask for side letters or any of the comfort documents which helps answer any of the questions. So overall, when we speak to the clients, when we consult with them, many a times it may happen that this is not the right investment opportunity for you. And we as good service providers have just a fiduciary responsibility to come back to you and say, okay, maybe this is not the right fit, you're looking at some other country, this is not a guaranteed investment, or you have to understand that the timelines vary. So all these disclosures in good faith are always made.
Right, wonderful to know that. Rhea, while we're talking diligence, due diligence, compliance, how do regional centers really ensure that they are complying with all the USCIS regulations?
So there are multiple steps that regional centers follow to ensure that they're compliant. First and foremost, we have to be compliant with the SEC, which is the SEBI equivalent. Then, like I told you before, a regional center is essentially a license. So you have to apply for that license and also have to pay regular fees that are issued by the USCIS, which is the governing body, to keep our licenses active. So we are able to issue investment opportunities for investors. So that's two. Then you also have a separate escrow account that all regional centers have for individual projects that are monitored by third-party auditors. So you have multiple steps that a regional center needs to follow. Additionally, with every project that we launch, we must have an I-956F application that we file with the USCIS. Without that, no investor will be able to receive their I-526E, which is your conditional green card. So these are steps that we follow to be compliant.
Rhea has actually pointed out a very valid observation that every investment, if you invest in a project, you must note that the regional center has lodged or filed the I-956F application. This is an application which is a bunch of business plan documents on the project, and USCIS reviews it. Unless this application is approved, your individual I-526E application will not be approved. But what Rhea said is very important, because note, she said you must have filed it. So you don't have to have an approval of the 956F. If it's available before your investment, great. But most good regional centers would tell you about what's the strategy of getting this approval. And most good regional centers would, depending upon the construction of the project, try not to release your funds from the project escrow account unless that approval is secured. Of course, this differs from case to case.
Right.
Just wanted to add one thing. So the USCIS also requires all regional centers to file an application called the I-956G form. Now, this is a form that requires all regional centers to have an independent audit and report every NCE data, whether it is post-RIA or pre-RIA. So these are again welcome changes, because it's pushing the regional center to account for each and every fund, every money that they have raised. Not just that, but each and every amount of sum of money that they've paid to their finders, to their broker dealers, to their agents. And again, these are points that help investors to understand that we are here to have a transparent process, and we're here to share every information possible that makes them feel secure.
Right. And yes, Girish.
Just one point to add to that. Just extending on what Akshat said. So every regional center has to also pay something called as integrity fund. So they have to pay that every year. And the consequence of non-payment is the regional center designation itself can get terminated if you're not contributing towards that fund. So that's point number one. Second is, because of the new law, and we have been quoting RIA, it essentially means Reforms and Integrity Act of 2022. Currently, the EB5 visa is governed under this particular law, which has brought many, many changes. One of the change, as Akshat mentioned, is the audit requirement. And the audit requirement is not just from the regional center side. USCIS also has to conduct audits in terms of site visit and office visit. So CMB regional centers recently had USCIS visit us at the Dallas office, and we successfully completed those audits, and every regional center will have to go through those. Since CMB regional centers is one of the oldest active regional centers, they chose us as one of the initial audit requirements. However, these changes are not just important from a perspective of the investor, but also from a perspective of sustained business from regional center standpoint. So in case any regional center is not interested in conducting sustained business, they might as well not pay all these fees. But it is very important for that regional center to comply with all these requirements, and the benefits, of course, will trickle down to the individual investor as well.
Right. So these are all questions that investors should be asking while choosing the regional center. Akshat, you wanted to add on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for the investor protection, as Rhea very rightly mentioned, that equivalent to SEBI is the Securities Exchange Commission in the US. Now tomorrow, if there are bad players, if there are people who have done mistakes, there could be things that go south. As an investor, you know that there is SEC in place. So the SEC can always go after regional centers, can terminate regional centers, can ask them for documentation if they feel that the investors have been defrauded or the investors haven't been delivered on what they were promised initially when they made that investment.
Okay, so let's also talk about the changes in regulations that have happened recently, and Girish mentioned a few of them. Akshat, how have what are some of the big changes that have happened, and how have they impacted EB5 investors? And of course, the investment, minimum investment did go up from 500,000 to 800,000 in the recent past. Has that changed anything for the number of investors queuing up?
Sure. So there are a number of changes, and I'm sure there are a lot of changes that each and every panel member would get to say something or the other, but top three changes according to me were, as you rightly said, the investment amount increased from $500,000 to $800,000. We understand that creates a liquidity issue at times. It's a push for a lot of people, which is why we at US Immigration Fund came up with an industry-leading financing program, where we're happy to offer loans of up to $400,000 to an investor. So even if you have a $400,000 or $500,000 corpus with you today, and you still want to live the American dream, it's still active. It's still something that is possible for you to pursue. The second is, as we discussed, that when they increase the investment amount, they acknowledge that for an investor who's paying an extra $300,000, they created a reservation or a quota of 32%, which falls under the targeted employment area category. So what that does is it puts you in a completely separate queue or line as compared to all investors who had applied, who were applying either in a non-TEA category or who applied before 15th of March 2022. And again, the star of the act is obviously the adjustment of status, the provision to file the adjustment of status. For someone who's based in the US, someone who's on an H-1B, someone who's on F-1 student visa program, as I think Abhishek rightly mentioned, the timeline to get your I-526E processed or adjudicated might be the same if you're based in the US or in India. But that provision, the extra benefit that you get because you're based in the US, helps you to get a work and travel permit as early as 3 to 9 months from the date of application. And just one last thing from my side is that prior to 2022, investors were eligible to receiving their money back only when they filed their permanent green card application, which is the I-829 petition. What that did was, it basically was very counterproductive in the interest of the investors because there were backlogs and waiting lists for investors year on year. So let's assume that you are an investor, you invested in a particular project, that project did absolutely well, they repaid all their investors on that project. The regional center had to then redeploy their funds into another project just because they by that time had not reached the stage of filing their I-829 petition. And I think as regional center representatives, we should be very happy that USCIS now has changed that definition of being able to get their money back by saying that as long as your entire $800,000 has been invested in a particular project for a minimum period of 2 years and has created those 10 jobs, you're applicable or eligible to receiving the money back. So now the journey of getting your money back and the journey of immigration are two independent journeys. They're not co-mingled or co-terminus with each other.
Right. Okay. So independent journeys, but Abhishek, is the entire EB5 process faster now, would you say?
Absolutely. So this is a very good question, though. So with the new laws, when the new categories were open, there was rural TEA category. Now, rural TEA comes with priority processing and visa set-asides. Now, priority processing is a very, very big addition to the EB5 world. Why? Out of 10 years of my experience, every second person, in fact, every person I meet, the first 5 questions, one of the questions is, how long is it going to take? Yeah. How soon can I get? So everybody wants to complete the circle as fast as possible. Now, if you will ask me how fast it is, so you asked one more question before that, how soon somebody has got a green card. So with EB5 United, with one of our projects, one person has got a green card in less than 4 months. I'm talking about a green card, adjustment of status with I-526E, after I-526E. So we have seen approvals in less than a month as well. On an average, when Aarushi was talking about I-956F approval, pre-I-956F approval, the average was around 11 months. People, after post I-956 approval, the I-526E approval timelines are around 4.7 months. It is a big addition, like people who need it, and they want it quickly. So these are step-by-step process. Like for example, if you get your I-526E approved fast or faster, then your adjustment of status or consular processing is triggered. That means it will take less time for you to reach to the state of conditional green card. Once you have your conditional green card, you are enjoying the immigration benefits, right? And on top of that, the other aspect of it is people who are filing from the US, with the new laws, they are filing concurrently. Concurrently means they are filing I-526E plus their adjustment of statuses, which is a bundle pack of 3 petitions. Adjustment of status, employment authorization, and advanced parole, which is a travel permit. So your EAD and advanced parole usually gets approved within 3 to 7 months from the day you file your petition. So what power it gives you? It gives you the power to hop jobs, employment authorization, stay there without working as well. Do whatever you want to do, even if it's not related to your major. Plus, with advanced parole, with the travel permit, you can travel in and out of the US without any hassle. So technically, you start enjoying the benefits, major benefits of green card within 3 to 7 months of filing the petition. So time is of essence. Everybody, for many people in this world, time is money. And whenever we are talking about immigration processes, like for example, ask an H1B who has filed for an EB2, how many years he has to wait for a green card, and what's the guarantee? And at the same given point of time, ask people who have filed in old laws. I feel bad for them. Many of them are still waiting for that. At the same given point of time, when you have a category wherein you can invest and you can see, like, taste success within months, nothing like it.
Right. So, you mentioned adjustment of status, and Aarushi, I want to come to you with that. Yes. Can you explain and simplify for us what is concurrent adjustment of status, and does it benefit EB5 investors?
Sure. So we saw a lot of discussion today regarding processing timelines, right? There are two categories of project by now everybody's understood. One is rural, which is eligible for faster processing. One is high unemployment area. Again, the time difference between the two varies by 6 to 8 months, depends on a lot of factors. Coming to what is adjustment of status. So for example, if I am on a lawful status in the United States, I'm on a student visa, on an H1B, on an L program, I'm allowed to file my I-526C petition for a conditional green card, and in parallel or at the same time, apply for what Abhishek mentioned, adjustment of status package. So these are bundle of 3 petitions, the work permit, the travel permit, and the adjustment of status itself. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to get a very fast access to the benefits to United States in as quick as 4 to 6 months now from the date of making this application. So an adjustment of status process is only specific to candidates who are locally in the US on a valid visa. Now let's say if Aarushi was applying for the program and Aarushi is based in India, she cannot apply for adjustment of status. I have to go through a process known as consulate interview. So what happens is that let's say I file the application today, I wait for the approval of the petition. Let's say for an example, it takes me a year to secure an approval. Subsequent to that, my case will be transferred from USCIS to the local consulate here in Mumbai, and then I will appear for a short interview known as consulate interview process. So again, just to recap and summarize, adjustment of status is actually, like Akshat said, star of the act. It's the biggest weapon in hands of someone who's locally in the US, gets you faster access, and consulate processes for someone who's locally here in India or in any other country of origin.
Right.
Just to add one point, it actually gives freedom to F1 students. Now, students, after their term is over, they go for OPT, which is optional practical training, or the work period. If they're not able to secure a job and the H1B status, they have to leave the country. But with EAD and advanced parole coming from concurrent filing, it really unlocks freedom to them.
Okay, wonderful to know that. Now, obviously, as investors, everyone wants their money back. So, Abhishek, what are some realistic expectations of EB5 investors for returns, and how does it compare to other investment opportunities?
So, I've been told again and again that, Abhishek, you are very blunt on answering this, and I would like to be very blunt in answering this. So, EB5 investment is a very different investment that you make, and this particular investment that you're making is solely for your immigration purposes. You do not make money out of EB5. In capital letters, underlined, that's it. So, like every investment, you have your intentions behind it, and then there's a goal that you want to achieve. You want to reach to a goal. So the goal for an EB5 investment is the smooth processing of your green card, because that's why you're doing EB5, right? For a green card, plus safety of your capital.
Just wanted to add 2 things here in the interest of the audience. Compare an EB5 investment with, let's say, 2 other investment classes. So as everyone said, you don't make money. So if you're wanting to make money, you might as well look at a private equity deal or a private equity investment. So that's one kind of other investment. A very famous or regular FAQ that we get is, if I invest in EB5, will I physically own a piece of real estate? The answer is no. Why? Because how EB5 investments are structured is that, as Girish rightly mentioned, the regional center issues you a PPM. All EB5 investors in a particular project become equal or pari passu shareholders of that new commercial enterprise or the SVP that's established unique to that particular project. and then that NCE eventually lends the funds to the developer. So unlike other immigration programs globally available where you could invest in a particular country, you physically own a piece of real estate, in the EB5 visa program, you're essentially a lender to the developer, and the only security or the only guarantee, let's just eliminate the word guarantee, but the only security you have is that you're a shareholder of the company that's the lender to the developer.
Right. Okay. So let's hear then from all of you on, the biggest advantage that you feel EB5 offers to investors as compared to other programs and other investment opportunities.
So, I can start.
You
right?
can start.
Yeah. If green card is of utmost importance for you, EB5, gives you a direct pathway for a green card, unlike any other visas available, which have their own restrictions and complexities. So this EB5 investment, EB5 process is for people who are looking for a permanent future in the US, a longer future in the US, either for the entire family or for your kids to be there, planning your life after 5, 6, 7 years, where you want to be, where your kids want to be, where your kids want to study, where they want to work. So if all these requirements can be fulfilled easily by a green card. So.
Right. Before I come back to this question, actually, Aarushi, like Abhishek mentioned, it is the route to the green card, but there's often a lot of information floating around, especially since regulations keep changing so often in this arena. Now, one thing that a lot of people believe is that a family cannot be outside the US for more than 6 months continuously in order to maintain their conditional or PR under this program. So is that true?
Right, so it's true, and let's understand where does this come from. So when you procure a conditional green card or you procure a permanent green card, there is something which is known as residency requirements to maintain that green card. Now the residency requirement rule as per Customs and Border Protection states that you should not be outside United States continuously for 6 months in a year. Some people interpret it to be as brief as once in 6 months. No, that is not the intent of the law. If that is the intent, then you may as well take a visitor visa. So United States is looking at screening you on the basis of establishing your intent. How do you establish your intent? A, you make visits to United States. B, you could probably lease out a property. You could purchase a property. You could open bank accounts. You have to start paying taxes. In fact, once you become a US green card holder, you are liable for reporting global taxation. For someone who's in India, there's a double tax avoidance treaty. We always assist clients in navigating that. But to come back to the question, you have to maintain visits to the US so that the government is able to convince that you have an intent to make US your home. If you're looking at never visiting the United States, if you are looking at interpreting this as any other passport program, then this is not the program for you.
Got it.
Yeah, I think and this is a very valid point, and I think this is because of this regulation, a lot of our clients actually filter out or decide to not move forward, because if you have a kid and that kid is, let's say, in the 8th or 9th standard, you're expecting an approval when that kid probably reaches an 11th grade. Parents don't expect their kids to move at the age when they're in their prime education years of 11th and 12th standards to the US. So as Abhishek rightly said, and all our other panelists like Rhea rightly said, the timing is essential, and that timing also needs to be kept in mind basis the residency requirements that the law has.
And Akshat, while we are educating the clients and mentioning about residency requirements, I also want to calm down the air here by saying, yes, if you have timing issues, if you would like to schedule the program in a better way, talk to us. We'll tell you about different ways to pursue the application. There are exemption petitions called re-entry permits. Those can be filed if you'd like to be outside the US for more than 6 months in a year. If you'd like to time your application in a manner that may be between the husband and wife, only one person would like to secure the green card, subsequently manage your taxes, and then the other spouse gets added, that's also possible. So as a law firm who's processed more than 5,200 petitions, probably the highest in the industry, what we take a lot of care in is assessing your requirement and then planning the application accordingly.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
wanted to add one point to what Aarushi said. So the 6 months rule is not, it's just a thumb rule. So you're not putting yourself in a jail that once I enter US as a permanent resident, I have to stay there for 6 months. Otherwise my green card is gone. It doesn't work like that. And attorneys can actually help you navigating through these issues. So for example, if there is a business person who has applied for EB5 visa, they were able to secure a green card, but now they want to take care of their business for an extended period of time outside of the US, they have options like re-entry permit. So they need to apply for a re-entry permit. Essentially, you are informing USCIS or informing the authorities that you intend to be outside of the US for more than 6 months. And while you try to enter back, you should be allowed to do that because you already have a permission seeking that. So these are few options which you can adhere to. Now, there is a difference between the green card timeline and the citizenship timeline. So as we know, EB5 is able to give you a green card. It's not a direct citizenship pathway, but it's one of the stepping stones to, if someone wishes to have a US citizenship.
Yeah.
Now, in that case, the residency requirements are going to change. As much as possible, that person needs to stay in the US because the timeline for citizenship differs from a generic green card timeline. If you want to retain your green card for an extended period of time, you're not looking for a citizenship, then there are ways to navigate through that. If someone intends to secure a citizenship of the US, then you should definitely speak with the attorneys. They can help you with that.
Right.
I have something to add to this. So to summarize all of this very simply, the EB5 program is honestly the fastest way to get your green card for Indian-born individuals. Secondly, it is also the way that all investors are in absolute control to receive their green card. So this is a program that allows investors to choose the kind of project that they want to invest in, see that this is an asset type they understand, see the term of the project, see when they're going to get their funds back and whether the project is approved or not, by when are they expecting to receive their conditional green cards. So all investors are honestly in full control. So this is a program where you can receive the fastest green card.
All right.
One last point I wanted to add to Rhea, well said Rhea. On top of that, after a very long time, we have program which is solid for 5 years, and it is grandfathered till, if you file till 30th of September 2026, and whatever happens to the program after that, your petition will be grandfathered. So this is a very, very good opportunity, and one of the best times, I would say it's the best time to go for EB5, if that's what you are considering.
Okay, so any future predictions from any of you? Because, so he's said that, till September 2026 is a good time to file. Any other thoughts, any predictions on when more changes are expected on EB5 regulations? Because
just a thought. This is here to stay. People from India want to move to the US. It is one of the countries where people are immigrating to almost the most. So it's here to stay. And we'll always be here to help you with the process.
all right.
Just to add to what Rhea said, EB5 is since 1990. So, and it is going to stay, definitely. There will be changes in terms of money, in terms of different rules, what new categories, whatever. But those changes will happen only after 2027. Because this particular, right now, whatever the laws are there for 5 years. And it is there for 5 years after a long time. That's why I said that right now it's a very good time, if not the best, to go for your EB5 dreams, if that's what you really want to go ahead for.
Also, being a numbers junkie, already 500 plus petitioners have filed the petition which are Indian born. So it's very critical for us to understand that there's always going to be a first mover's advantage. Best time to apply for the program. You have a good mix of high unemployment area projects, rural projects, best of the regional centers coming to your rescue. It's a very interesting time because if you apply early on as a family, especially for Indians, who are right now contemplating the program. If you apply as a family of 4 or 3, you're getting green cards at the cost of 1. So $800,000 encapsulates husband, wife, and kids below 21. If your kids are planning education in the US, you're going to be saving 1/3 on the tuition fees. And if your child is ultimately planning to settle in the US, this is a pain that you'll have to resolve either today or tomorrow. So fantastic time to apply for the program. Talk to the regional centers. They are also allowing you to do partial investments. So if, for example, you want to lock the priority date, important, very important in the immigration history, you want to lock the date, you could start with a token investment and then complete the rest of the investment in the next few months. Also helps a lot to comply with the RBI regulations. So yeah, good time to apply.
Yes, Girish.
I think we missed out on one point which should be mentioned. And thanks, Aarushi, for reminding that to me. So obviously, children below 21 become part of that application wherein either of the parents is the main applicant, right? However, it becomes very important to understand that there is something, the concept of aging out. What it essentially means is once you apply for your first petition, I-526E petition, if the children's age or the eldest child's age is say 15 or 16, that should be okay. If the child is around 18 or 19, what happens in either of those scenarios is once you apply for your I-526E petition, the age of that child is going to freeze until the I-526 petition is approved. So let's say someone applied when the child was 19 years old and the I-526E petition was approved 2 years down the line. The child is actually now 19 plus 2, 21 years. However, for EB5 purposes, the clock will start ticking again, 19 years 1 month, 19 years 2 months. So what happens is, unless you take the next step of paying the NVC fees or consulate fees, unless you do that, you are not considered as taking action once your I-526E petition is approved. And within that timeline, if the child age is out, so they cross the years of 21 years of age, then everyone else will receive the green card except for that particular child. So if you have a child which is around the age of 15, 16 or 17, then this is the right time for you to take that call or start that due diligence process that you want to move forward with EB5, if that is the best option for you.
Mridu, just since you asked, any future predictions? No. The hope is that the industry flourishes. Stakeholders of the industry are benefited. Investors get their money back. They get their green card. It's a flourishing industry. Everyone's happy. That's the kind of hope that we would sort of live to another day. But since you asked for a thought, I think in terms of getting all of this information today, what is the plan of action? How do you put all of this information into action and start initiating the process? I think the best way is to talk to an immigration attorney and at the same time keep reviewing projects, because let's understand, if you select a project today, until and unless your source of funds aren't approved, until and unless you work diligently for about 30 to 45 days with your immigration attorney, you are not qualified to make the investment. Not just from an immigration attorney perspective, but even regional centers do not accept investments until unless we get a written confirmation from the attorney that the SOF is approved by that particular client. So if we had to channelize all of this information into a plan of action, do both of these things simultaneously. Try and prefer having a conversation with an attorney so that you are guided on all aspects of immigration, of other restrictions, other privileges that you get, and at the same time simultaneously do your due diligence on various projects that are available to you in the industry.
Okay, so we're completely timed out on this session, but I want to give you all 30 seconds each to pretend to be EB5 investors yourself. And what is that first question that you're going to put out, either to a regional center or to an attorney? The first question that comes to mind as you being an EB5 investor. Abhishek, let's start with you.
Okay. The 30 seconds will be less. There will be too
One
many
question
questions.
each. One question each.
I would really like to know the track record of the regional center and the project. What have they done in the past? I would like to essentially we are talking about an NCE manager over here. So you should always go ahead with issuers who have history of doing successful projects. What was the history? What was the track record of job creation? How safe the project? How safe were the earlier projects? How many projects have they already repaid? So I can keep going on.
That's a list of questions. One question each. Aarushi.
Two main questions. When do I get my green card? And how do I get my money back? How safe is my investment? Favorite questions, and here to answer all of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Akshat.
I think what is the project that I'm investing in? Need all details about that particular project. Can I visit the project? I think these are predominantly the questions because as I think everyone mentioned, past success does not guarantee future results. So your money is dependent on where you're investing at the end of the day.
All right. Rhea?
I think one of the most important questions I would ask is how many projects has the regional center done, and how many projects has the regional center been able to successfully repay?
Fair enough.
So after asking all these questions, the next question would be, whom are you working with? Who's the developer? And whether there is any strong track record between the regional center and the developer, and then focus on the project. Because these are the three important points: the regional center, developer, and the project wherein you are investing. So all these three aspects need to be covered.
Right, and luckily you have all the stakeholders here today to answer some of those questions. We've given you the questions. They're going to answer them one-on-one as well. So feel free to reach out, and just remember that key message that the EB5 Investor Visa Program is not just about investment. It is actually about getting your green card. It's about building a future and fulfilling your American dream. Hope the session was insightful for you all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mridu.
Thank you. Do we have time for questions?
I think you can step ahead of the tables and take up to photograph.
We can? Okay. So we have time for about 2 questions. Fastest hand that goes up first, right there. Okay. Sure.
Abhishek talked about other charges like administrative fees and filing fees and attorney fees. How much will be that besides 800,000?
$800,000 is going to be your investment. Administration fees is usually 10% of 800,000 US dollars. That's 80,000 US dollars. Attorney fees, like there are thousands of attorneys in the US, and around 55 of them they do EB5. The range is somewhere between 20 to 25,000 US dollars. That will totally depend on which attorney you choose to work with. And then you have USCIS filing fees. Depends whether you're filing from India or you're doing a concurrent filing in the US. So it's around 22 to 25,000 US dollars.
Ballpark.
Having said that, attorney fees, you can, they're a separate entity. You can definitely negotiate that with the attorney. Administration fees, separate entity. You can definitely negotiate that with them.
How much Aarushi charges?
That's a question for her.
So
Yeah.
Abhishek's been very kind to say that you can negotiate on the fees. See, lawyers or any professional for that matter will charge you in tandem with the experience they bring to the table. Like Abhishek said, 20 to 25, it's a good ballpark estimate. And I can vouch for my firm. I told you that we have filed thousands of petitions, have 2,000 permanent green card approval. And what we do is that we charge you as per the milestones you complete with us. So you're not paying us upfront. Don't do that. As you achieve, you pay us a token fee. That's usually how professionals charge.
I wanted to add one point for you. Specifically asked about the attorney fees. I mentioned that you can negotiate. But understand one thing, apart from your family, the most important person in your life after you file your EB5, in fact, before you start thinking, get in the process of filing EB5, the most important person in your life is going to be the attorney.
Your therapist for the next few years.
Yeah, and they're going to do your source of funds, they're going to file your petition, they will be there till the end of your journey. Source of funds is going to be the spine of your petition. So, be very careful, and careful in the sense, I don't want to use that word, but I would say that don't go below a certain level in terms of, thinking of I'll save a couple of $1,000s over here, because always keep in mind, for saving a couple of $1,000s, don't jeopardize your $800,000. Let the money be rest aside. Don't jeopardize the dreams and future of your entire family.
So he's covering up the negotiation part he has said.
Together we will negotiate well,
So
don't
we'll
worry.
keep the cross questions out. You can reach out to the speakers. If there is okay, one last question.
Just one last. You said the bundle of.
We are all
We are here.
Don't
We
worry.
can meet in person. Yeah.
Ma'am wanted to.
Sure.
Let's have one question from someone else, and then you can connect with them offline. Yeah.
Just bundle of petitions. You said that how much time that takes to file the petitions.
I'll address it just in a while. Yeah.
My question to you all is that should we hire an attorney first, or should we talk about regional center, developer, identify project? I mean, what is the step you follow generally?
You can do that simultaneously, actually. It's not necessary that you should speak with the attorney first or the regional center later, whoever you are comfortable with. Because regional center due diligence usually takes more time, because you get acclimatized with the project, with the nuances of it. The PPM is a 500, 600 pager document. So it takes time to go through all those details and then ask questions. But you can do that simultaneously. There is no hard and fast rule that you should speak with one over the other as such.
So do attorneys help in reviewing the regional centers and due diligence of the projects?
Like I said, we review the projects from an immigration standpoint. We will also happily talk to you about the job creation methodology as the regional center, the right questions. Building on to what Sir also wanted to ask on timelines, and also answering about how much time should you factor in for lodging the petition. So talk to the regional center in parallel, do the DD on their projects, factor in 1 to 2 months. Any good immigration attorney would take that time to prepare your petition. Also then factor in country-specific timelines to remit the funds. We have to plan it between March and April if you are here. If you're already in the US, then try and see that we can transfer the funds in tranches or at front. So all these are things that you have to keep in mind. Timelines are very straightforward. Right now it's very fast. You're getting your approvals on certain projects which are rural, and if it's also business plan approved in as quick as 3 months, 6 months, on an average 8 months on rural. In a high employment area project, again, if a business plan is approved, I've seen the approvals in a year also, maximum 1.5 years. So the variation is 6 months to 7 months.
Are there any separate queues for rural, high employment
I
area
request you
infrastructure
to
things?
Can we
keep
take
your
that
cross
offline?
details.
Timelines, are there separate queues
We'll
for
take it
rural or the
Sir,
high
there are many
employment or infra
questions.
projects?
The timelines vary according to the projects. Request you to connect on a one-on-one basis. All of them are here and are very happy to answer your questions. Request all of you to please give them a huge round of applause.